Hello, everyone, and welcome to the talk show called Allowed to Talk. And today I'm going to be continuing to read from the book that I wrote a year or so back, and hope you enjoy or learn something or maybe heal from your past complex post-traumatic stress. And the book is Who Took My Self-Esteem? Inner Critics Are Like Trolls. I'm going to start in today's show on chapter 11. Attacking. When you tell the truth and believe the truth, many times a family will shoot you down for being the truth teller. I know because it happened to me. I was told that all humans are equal and God loves us all the same. That truth changed when I decided to date someone from a different race than us. My dad was waiting on the front porch when I got home from that first date. He told me what is what about dating him. My dad basically told me that I am an abomination. I walked to the backyard behind my grandparents' house and sat there very much alone, sat on the grass near the pond. I cried while I was sitting there wondering, what the heck? I remember as a young 12-year-old child, my oldest brother would take us along to visit their Aunt Audrey. Audrey was a loving aunt to the kids. She was his ex-wife's sister, and we all liked her very much. So my oldest brother's ex-wife's sister, Aunt Audrey. My oldest brother's ex-wife was dead by then. She had remarried a man that lived only a few miles away from the farm I grew up on. She had 5 more children. My oldest brother's ex-wife had 5 more children with her second husband. My oldest brother's kids never got to meet their half-siblings. They say that they never wanted to meet them. My oldest brother's ex-wife still had a sex addiction since she was never helped with that. She died at the hands of a sex partner she was meeting at a lake. And I wrote in here the book that it was Stover's Dam, but someone told me recently that it was Strack's Dam. Anyway, it was at a park that had a lake that was dammed off, so we called it. It was either Stover's or Strack's Dam Park. The guy who she was meeting murdered her involuntarily when he held her down as she choked to death during oral sex with him. This kind of stuff was always discussed in front of me no matter what age I was. At age 12, I did not understand. I understood many years later. Aunt Audrey lived in a second-story apartment in town. My oldest brother's 4 kids and I loved going there. We quite often ordered pizza and ate dinner with her. I was always pushed on my brother Ken and went along with him and the 4 kids. I was verbally bashed during the rides to and from her apartment, but I loved spending time there with Aunt Audrey. One trip home from her apartment, my brothers passed away, Aunt Audrey, so I can use their names. And if someone wants to sue me, go right ahead. One trip home from her apartment, my brother stopped the car in the middle of town, close to a bar that was very scary to me. He yelled out, "If you don't stop arguing with my oldest daughter, I am going to drop you off here and you can walk the rest of the way home." I was terrified. I did not say a word the rest of the ride home. Back then, I had no idea he was just saying that. I was a seriously sensitive child, and I believed him. Oh, and that is my own fault, even as a kid, according to a few of my sisters. One Sunday, his kids and I were all ready to go to Aunt Audrey's apartment and visit, but that never happened again. Ken would get all dressed up and go all by himself from then on to visit her. We were very upset and wondered why for a few months. I felt rejected over and over again most of my childhood. A few months later, Ken stopped visiting Aunt Audrey. She started visiting our house after church on Sundays. I was puzzled for a while, but soon learned that she was expecting a baby. It all added up in my tiny brain. My brother Ken is the father of her baby. I didn't speak up, though. One day after Ken stopped visiting Audrey, my grandma was out on the front porch in a fit of rage. She was yelling, "That baby Audrey is carrying is not Ken's. If he says it isn't his child, then it isn't." I spoke up and said that it seemed to be his child. I was immediately told at age 12 to shut up and that a child my age knows nothing. The truth teller shot. Aunt Audrey continued to visit on Sundays up until the baby boy was about 9 months old. She then moved a few counties away. I was getting so close to that baby boy, but it just wasn't meant to be. She moved with him, and we didn't see him again until he was about 10 years old. So she moved away for around 9 years from us. So I was like 19 or 20 when she moved back in the area. She moved back to our area after my grandma died. Ken married her and admitted that the boy was his child. Finally. Took 9 years. He loved his son and was sorry for not being honest. I will say this over and over and even scream it out. Honesty is always the best policy. So many lives are damaged by the lies people tell about their sin. Can you spell forgiveness? Yes, you can, and you can forgive also. Forgiveness cannot happen if we do not confess our faults and talk about them. My mother and some of my sisters still never want to talk about any of the dysfunction in our family. If I do start a conversation about that fact, projection happens fast. I am the bad and told to be seen and not heard, even in my older years. Just don't talk about it. One of the questions asked during the messaging of anger and who is right and who is wrong was, where did this all come from? My answer is way down deep in my soul where I have been carrying it around for years and years. It hurt like carrying around a tumor filled with infectious pus. The only way for it to heal is for it to open up and leach out. The open wound is infected and will have to get worse before it gets better. I am healing, and I was healing when I wrote this book over a year ago. The one thing I wish I would have done, though, is to keep all this to myself as I was healing. Speaking the truth to my siblings has caused them to dig in their heels even deeper. They do not want what is best for me. They want what is best for themselves. The proof is in the outcome of my truth telling. I should have healed and then introduced myself to them again. I should have introduced the whole healed me to them, but it's way too late to do that now. They say better late than never, and never say never, but I doubt it. But if God intervenes, it can have some kind of healing, and I can maybe reconcile, but I don't know. We'll see. Chapter 12, Scapegoat Loser is always wrong. Not only was I always wrong and the bad one as a child, lately when I message or post something online, somehow it turns around on me. I am the one who is wrong, hurtful, not acting like a Christian, and bad. I say in my head, what is new? My sister posted about being careful what you say and do because your words and actions can hurt someone. No kidding. Seems like it was okay to lambaste certain members of the family and coddle other certain members of the family. The coddled won't understand ever. When I posted videos about the truth I found online and how all the puzzle pieces fit, I would be ignored, sent scripture, and blocked. I blocked some of them, a lot of them. Some of my nieces deleted my page and were concerned about a 38-year-old cousin who had to learn about her grandmother, my oldest brother's ex-wife, how she died, as I said it on a video. I had to hear, and she was 38. I was 12 when I heard about it. She was 38 years old and probably been around the world, let's say it like that. She knew about stuff like that. I had to hear about this horror, how she died with oral sex and being involuntary manslaughtered when I was only 12 years old, far from an age of an adult. I still was the one shamed and blamed for hurting someone. As far as I could tell, the truth teller is the family member that is always the scapegoat. There's more than one, a lot, and it can change. Like if you read up on some of the books about the family dysfunctional things and order and things you call the family members. There was stuff tied in my back and I was sent away feeling worthless more times than not. Just a few short months ago, my one sister shared a post online that said something to this effect. Our dead mother is an angel in heaven. And I commented that we are not angels in heaven. Our mother was far from an angel. She made mistakes and messed with our heads by screaming and lambasting us with unkind words and actions. I took the most criticizing many times as one who took everything she said very seriously. I was also sensitive and turned to no human for consoling. I turned to the cats, of course, and the cattle. I went in a shell and turned to the cats and cattle for comfort. My dad had a massive stroke when he was about 72 years old and died the next day. In the hospital, I touched his left arm and spoke to him. He pulled his arm away and looked at me like he was looking at the world's worst daughter. Tears. When I was age 23, my mom was still bossing me around. Of course. She told me not to use any time off of my job from work that my employees might give me other than the funeral day. Her comment was, "Your dad is dead and you can't bring him back by taking days off of work. What about days for me to grieve?" Oh, the hell with my feelings. Truth right there. I did as she said, and I didn't say a word to question her. I could have had 3 days, bereaving days. And I just took the funeral day off. My mom died later, almost 10 years after my dad. She was 9 years younger than my dad. Her heart failed as she was walking across the yard to go home. She was babysitting some of her grandchildren that lived next door. The ambulance attendants tried to revive her, and they accomplished keeping her alive. The next day in the emergency department, her heart failed again, and we said not to try to save her. She was in such bad physical health and would not have been able to heal. At my mother's funeral, my brother Ken's oldest daughter went forward to speak. The funeral director told us that anybody who wanted to talk could just walk up to the podium. My brother John's daughter from his first marriage spoke, because his first wife was a cheater. He divorced from a cheater, of course. His daughter spoke of how her grandma helped her dad and helped raise her too. Ken's oldest daughter, my oldest brother's daughter, who was 2 years younger than me, because I was 2 when he had his first child, my mom's first grandchild. Ken's daughter then went up to speak. She went up to the podium. She went on with her talk about how her grandmother was her mother and raised her. Oh, yes, she was telling the truth. The day the 4 grandchildren moved into our home, I was dropped like a hot vat of acid. I sat in my chair at my mother's funeral and stared at my oldest brother's child, in wonder. She was so right. My mother was her mother and raised her. I did not budge from my seat. I didn't really have a mother or anyone to comfort and console me. Well, except for my cats. Chapter 13, Lion or Pussy? Don't get me wrong, a child needs discipline, a child needs understanding, and a child needs love. A parent shows love by disciplining a child when they are not learning respect and obeying. All children need words of encouragement and to be taught morals and many things about life. I am mostly explaining how a child that is not told much about anything, but is still expected to know what the adult knows about life. One instance of the many I can use as an example is the death of my great-grandmother. Great-grandma was living with my grandma and Pap, the house across the sidewalk at the farm. Their house was just a short sidewalk away from the house my parents rented from them at the farm they owned. I was about 4 years old. 4 years old when my great-grandmother moved there. I used to take one of my cats upstairs to her bedroom now and then. Crazy Bones. My sister, the one that's 1.5 years older than me, was named after our great-grandmother. She was about 6 years old when great-grandmother moved to our grandma's house across the yard, the sidewalk. Great-grandma would read to her, my sister that's a year and a half older than me, while sitting on the porch glider seat. But what I loved was taking one of my cats up to her bedroom. Great-grandma must have died suddenly because nothing was explained to me about it. I still don't know that answer. What I know about my great-grandmother's death is this. The next thing I knew, we were in a fancy room where I glanced over at a fancy bed, and there she was. Great-grandma was sleeping in a high, fluffy bed. I wanted to be with her. I made my way over to this bed. I put my leg up and was going to climb up to be with her. Someone in my family rushed over to me and grabbed my leg, saying, "No, no, 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 you can't do that." Are you starting to understand how my family of origin expected me to understand without being explained anything? A few years later, my dad was reaming out my sister that's a year and a half older than me for something she did that he thought was inappropriate. I was very upset. And this one time I wasn't going to stay silent. I spoke up, quickly stating, "You don't talk to my sister like that." Immediately, my dad screamed in a fit of rage, "You will shut your mouth and never talk back to me again, or I will punch you in the puss. And I don't mean your face." I was terrified and very slowly turned and climbed the staircase to my bedroom. I knew he would do what he said too, in his fits of rage. I never defended my sister or anyone again. My dad was almost 60 years old then at that time. He was still dealing with us being under 10 years old and his 4 grandchildren living there. How sad that he had to rage and do exactly what my mother told him to do, or else. She was the boss. In the meantime, I would take walks through the pastures and sing opera style to the cattle. We also had a pond on the farm. The younger kids shared a pair of double-bladed ice skates, and I loved to ice skate around and around. When the pond was frozen, of course. I felt like a roaring lion then. I so wanted to be a famous ice skater. When I asked my mom about that, she laughed and said, "You can't do that." And I'm going to end this with that chapter today. I hope you are all doing okay and that you're keeping the faith. Take care.